Have you ever like run your fingers over a really old book?
Oh, yeah.
Just feeling the history and like the craftsmanship.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're diving into today. We're getting a sneak peek at a brand new podcast called Conversations About Bookbinding. It's launching on October 2nd.
Okay.
And honestly, just hearing about it makes me want to like sign up for a bookbinding class immediately.
Well, it's interesting you should say that it's so much more than just a craft.
Okay.
It's a direct link to history. Did you know some of the earliest known books were bound over 1,500 years ago using something called Coptic binding
1,500 years ago.
in Egypt?
Wow.
Yeah.
So that means that like the way we hold a book today,
Yeah.
the way we turn the pages,
Could be echoing techniques.
could be echoing techniques from ancient times.
From ancient times, exactly.
Yeah. That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, and this new podcast, Conversations About Bookbinding, hosted by Edward Patrick Kranz, who also goes by the Honey Badger Binder.
The Honey Badger Binder.
I know, seriously, how cool is that?
That's amazing.
He dives deep into all aspects of this art form.
The Honey Badger Binder. Okay, that's a name that makes you want to know more about the person behind it.
Right, and he's launching with new episodes every other Wednesday starting October 2nd.
Oh, yeah.
But we're talking bookbinding, book repair, book restoration.
Right.
Are those all the same thing? Or are there some subtleties there?
Okay, so for someone like me who's mostly just admired books from afar, those sound pretty similar. Help a novice out.
Happy to. So think of it this way. Bookbinding is like building a house from the ground up. You're taking the loose pages, you're assembling them into a text block, and then crafting a cover that will stand the test of time. That's the foundation.
Okay, so then is book repair more like fixing that leaky faucet?
Perfect analogy. Book repair is all about those everyday wear and tear issues.
Yeah.
A torn page, a loose hinge, maybe a spine that needs a little TLC.
So more like a general practitioner for your books.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then we come to book restoration, which is like calling in a specialized surgeon.
Ooh, intriguing. Okay. So when that old family Bible has seen better days,
Yes.
or a first edition needs a little love, that's where the restoration comes in.
Precisely. It often involves rare or valuable books that require specialized knowledge and a very delicate touch. I mean, imagine trying to preserve a piece of history like a first edition Shakespeare. That's the level we're talking about.
I can only imagine the stories those books could tell
Right.
and the skill it would take to bring them back to life.
And that's what I find so captivating about this podcast. It promises to pull back the curtain on all these facets of book care. And if this has you curious, there's more to explore beyond just the podcast.
Oh, do tell. Is there a book club to go with it?
The laughter.
I'm only half kidding.
Well, not a book club, exactly. But the studio behind Conversations About Bookbinding, a place called BookForge, is incredible.
Yeah.
They offer a ton of resources.
Okay, I'm already hooked. Tell me everything. Where can I find them online?
Okay, you can't just mention a place called BookForge and not expect me to want to, like, move in.
Yeah.
Where do I sign up?
Their website's a perfect place to start. It's https://www.bookforge.online. They've got information about their services, workshops.
Workshops, you say?
You name it.
Like hands-on bookbinding workshops.
Yeah.
Oh, this is dangerous information. I'm already clearing my schedule. What kind of workshops do they offer?
I know, right? It's seriously tempting. They have a range of workshops for all skill levels, from absolute beginners to, more experienced binders.
So cool.
Yeah.
And for those of us who are digitally inclined, do they have a social media presence?
Well, absolutely. They're on Instagram at bookforge.official.
And TikTok at BookForge. It's a great way to kind of get a feel for their style and see some of the amazing projects they've worked on.
You mentioned BookForge is a studio behind the Conversations About Bookbinding podcast. It sounds like they're really passionate about sharing this craft with a wider audience.
It really does. And they even have a Patreon community for those who want to go even deeper.
A Patreon community dedicated to bookbinding.
Yeah.
Now, that's something I would gladly pour a cup of coffee and settle in for.
Right.
Tell me more.
It's amazing. They offer live workshops, step-by-step tutorials, even book reviews.
Oh, wow.
From a bookbinder's perspective.
What?
Talk about a unique angle.
Okay, I'm sold.
Yeah.
I'm already picturing myself browsing their Patreon page with a cup of tea and a stack of old books, just soaking it all in.
I can totally see it. And what really strikes me is how this podcast and BookForge are shining a light on a craft that might seem a little hidden in today's digital world.
It's true. In a world of e-readers and audiobooks, there's something so grounding and, dare I say, romantic about the art of bookbinding.
Absolutely. There's a tactile, almost meditative quality to working with your hands, feeling the texture of the paper, the grain of the leather.
Yeah, it's like taking a step back in time, connecting with a long lineage of craftspeople who have been practicing this art for centuries.
And yet it's also so relevant today.
Right.
You know, there's a growing appreciation for handcrafted artisanal goods,
Hmm.
and bookbinding fits right into that.
It's like the difference between buying a mass-produced piece of furniture
Equally.
and owning something that's been crafted by hand with care and attention to detail.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's that human touch, that connection to the maker that makes all the difference.
It makes you wonder what hidden treasures are lying dormant in our attics and basements,
Right.
just waiting for someone to give them a little love and attention.
Now there's a thought. And who knows, maybe listening to conversations about bookbinding could be the spark that ignites someone's passion for this incredible craft.
Speaking of Starks, what was it about this deep dive that resonated most with you? What stands out as particularly interesting?
You know what fascinates me the most is the idea that each book has its own story to tell.
Wow.
Not just the words on the pages, but the journey of the book itself.
Wow.
How it was made, who owned it, how it's been cared for over time.
And I think that's something that the Honey Badger Binder will really capture in this podcast. You know, there's a reason behind every choice a bookbinder makes.
Right.
Every stitch, every tool. And it's not just about like preserving the past.
Right.
It's about creating something that'll last into the future.
Exactly. Each book becomes a kind of time capsule.
Oh, yeah.
And when you think about the fact that bookbinding has been practiced for centuries,
Mm-hmm.
it connects us to this incredible lineage of craftspeople across time.
It's like holding a piece of history in your hands.
Right.
A tangible link to the past.
And who knows what stories these books will tell in another 100 years. The thought of someone in the future carefully restoring a book I bound today,
Yeah.
it's humbling.
It really makes you appreciate the artistry
Right.
and the dedication that goes into each and every book.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that Edward Patrick Kranz, the Honey Badger binder himself, understands deeply. Based on everything we've seen from BookForge, this podcast is going to be a real treat for anyone who's curious about this world.
Speaking of treats,
Brr.
this entire deep dive has felt like one big delicious buffet for the book-loving soul. I am ready to like grab a stack of old books and get to work.
Me too.
It's inspiring to think about the possibilities.
It is.
And, you know, for anyone listening who's feeling that spark of inspiration,
Yeah.
I encourage you to check out Conversations About Bookbinding. Who knows? It might just awaken a passion you never knew you had.
I totally agree. I think it's a fantastic starting point.
It definitely has for me. I know I'll be marking my calendar for October 2nd when the podcast officially launches. And in the meantime, I'll be exploring everything BookForge has to offer online.
Their website is https://www.bookforge.online, right?
That's right. And don't forget that they're on Instagram and TikTok as @bookforge.official and at BookForge.
So much to explore. Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to sign off and let our listeners embark on their own bookbinding journeys.
Happy binding, everyone.
Until next time.